is a silly lie you once told, and you are in so deep that you have no other choice but to uphold it. Story 1. Long ago, Discovery Channel had a special on prehistoric pigs. It aired on April 1st, and being a 12-year-old who was smart and knew how to think critically, i.e., didn't think to look into the special and find out if it was the real deal as I thought I knew everything, I assumed it was a joke show put on by the channel. A few months later, they re-aired the special. My dad happened to be watching it, and nerd that he is, called me in excitedly to show me this prehistoric pig programming. I scoffed and said, "Dad, it's fake. It was made for April Fools and now they're showing it again." "Oh wait," he said, and laughed. "Hey, race the thing, I was wrong. The show was about a real animal that really existed." I discovered this a few years later on the internet, but by now my dad had started using these fake giant pigs as a conversation starter. Not only that, but he's flipped the story a bit. Now he's the one who saw the show on April 1st, and 23 years later, the man still brings up the show. Because he thinks the idea of what he calls dinosaur pigs is hilarious. I thought of telling him, but it's too deep now. I go to my grave with this one. Edit holy. This got some upvotes, for what it's worth. The people linking various dinopig wikis in the comments. I honestly have no clue which one it is, probably the Intelligence, but I can't say. As for which documentary it is, folks linking YouTube vids, that I'm also fuzzy on. This is a doc I saw before Discovery lost its mind. Sometime between 1996 and 2000, I was definitely in middle or very early high school, because of the house I remember seeing it in, so, ages 12 to 14. My memory says it was called When Pigs Ruled the Earth World and that it aired around the time those Walking with Dinosaurs documentaries exploded. Anything produced in the aughts is right out. Also, I can't be a shitty, lying snake of a son. Guys, I'm a lady, I'm just a horrifying femme fatale. There is a guy who I used to work with at a corporate chain steakhouse while I was going to college that had bit of a whopper. We stayed up all night partying, and he didn't wake up in time for his opening shift the following day. When he finally got up, he was 2 hours late and had a grip of missed calls. He was about a month away from graduating and had worked this same job all through college. So he was worried that he was going to get fired and wouldn't be able to use the job reference, so his solution was to call in and tell the boss he had been in a car accident on his way to work. Now this temporarily solved the problem. But to really sell the story, he ended up hiding his truck in a friend's garage and working his next 4 weeks of serving shifts with a fake full-arm cast. Brandon, you're a legend. Story 2. Last year on the first day of a month-long rotation in medical school, I was telling a story and accidentally referred to my dog as my daughter. Quickly did the mental evaluation of how embarrassing it would be to correct myself versus rolling with it, and just decided to go with it and pretended I had a kid for the rest of the month. I didn't purposely bring it up or anything, but if someone mentioned it was October, was asked about taking my kid trick or treating etc., I would just vaguely agree and not elaborate on anything. Story 3. Not me, but my hairdresser told me this a few months ago and I couldn't stop laughing. A few years ago, he and his girlfriend at the time went on vacation to a resort somewhere in Spain. On the first day of arriving, they got talking to another couple they met in the hotel, and just for a joke he pretended to be American by putting on an accent he's English. He said he wasn't even sure why he did it. He was just goofing around and he thought he'd never see these people again, so it was just a throwaway thing. However, they ended up being pretty good friends with this couple and saw quite a lot of them over the course of the vacation. I guess it would have been too embarrassing weird to come clean and tell them the truth, so he just had to go with it and put on an American accent every time he saw them for a week. In addition to this, he was also going through some problems in his relationship, can't think why. So basically spent the whole trip either arguing with his girlfriend or having to get in character and pretend to be American for no other reason than his own stupidity. He said it was the worst vacation of his life and was more stressful than being home at work. Story 4. Here we go. When I was in 6th grade, my buddy and I attempted to skip school. We planned that the next day he would stay home sick. I would use this landline phone I had in my room, which had a hold feature to what I thought would tie up the line all day so that the school couldn't get a hold of my mom who worked from home. This is obviously long before cell phones were a thing. I would go to buddy's house and we would play Genesis all day. So, turns out that phones don't work like that. We're hanging out and suddenly I hear a car outside. I run downstairs and hide while buddy answers the door to my crying mother who asks if he's seen me. He lies and says no. When she goes, I come up and decide that I'm in big trouble and need to cover it. I plan to say some teenagers from the nearby high school were picking on me and chase me around a neighborhood I didn't know well. I head home and run into my dad who was looking for me. I give him the story and he seemed to buy it. He takes me home where my mom is on the phone to the police. She had my school picture out and is crying. She puts me on the phone and makes me tell my story to the cop. He sounds skeptical but he accepts the story. My mom is happy I wasn't abducted by serial rapists. She then asks if I want to go back to school in the afternoon. I say I do because it'll get me away from being grilled about it anymore at home. But at school I get grilled by my teacher and the principal. My friend informs me the entire school went on lockdown when I was missing because of potential abduction. I had to keep going with the teenager story for years. I finally told my mom years later when I was an adult and she was pretty mad, but I was past getting in trouble for it. Story 5. I can't think of any really big ones, but there's one weird one. In college, a group of people I didn't know well were talking about this guy they'd gone to high school with who looked exactly like me, to the point that they were convinced I was him with them by pretending to be someone else. The only difference was that my doppelganger wore glasses, and I didn't, so in order to with them a little bit, I said that I'd worn glasses in high school, but didn't anymore. ID never worn glasses. One of the people there that I did know well remembered what ID said, and didn't believe me, so the next time she bumped into my best friend from high school, she asked whether ID worn glasses. He backed me up instantly. I figured something was up and decided to back me up. A decade later, with the acquisition of good vision insurance, I had my eyes checked and actually did wind up getting glasses, with a very mild prescription. Upon seeing me with them for the first time, my best friend said, "Oh wow, I haven't seen you with glasses on since high school." I've never been sure whether he backed me up and then somehow internalized that backup and then really believed that I wore glasses in high school, or whether he just always somehow believed that ID worn glasses. Story 6. I once got sort of unapproved access to a VIP area at a venue, and the person who got me in probably would have gotten in trouble if it was found out that they did a fairly major musician was playing. This was the lounge area where their family and friends were watching the show, only about 20 people. When people asked why I was there, I said I was related to the owner of the venue, figured this was boring enough but would stop the questions. Instead, this really nice group of people all started complimenting me on the venue and talking to me more about it and my family. They were really awesome people and we chatted the rest of the evening. They invited me to spend the upcoming holiday weekend at their beach house with the band. I did. No one ever found out. I have no connection to the venue and don't even know who actually owns it. Story 7. That I could play the piano. I never thought it would come up and that I was safe with my lie. It did come up, more often than I thought it would. I had to make up an excuse to not play, and people started to think I was lying about know how to play. Eventually I took some lessons so that way if it came up again I could actually play something and not look like I'm completely full of. It paid off, and after I moved from that area I never told anyone I could play piano again. Story 8. When I was 10, another kid on my school bus asked me if I played World of Warcraft. I lied and said yes. I spent the entire rest of the year, before and after school on the bus, talking about a game I never played in my life. One day, I was invited over when he made me log in. I entered some account and claimed I forgot my password, spending the next 30 minutes trying to debug by resetting a password to an account that doesn't exist. Haha. Oh my god, what was I doing? Story 9. My boyfriend, now husband, told me he went to grad school but never graduated. I found out around 10 years into us dating that it was a giant lie he had said to impress me. The only reason he came clean was his mother found out and told me. Story 10 years ago, Canada beat the United States in the Olympics in hockey. I had a couple coworkers that had been gloating about how the US was going to kick those Canadian asses for a week beforehand. So, naturally I teased them the day after the Canadians won. What, are you Canadian or something? Actually yes, I have a dual citizenship. They told a bunch of other coworkers and it spread around. I had to look up Canadian facts to keep my story straight. Story 11. Told my husband when we first met that he couldn't talk to my grandparents because they only spoke German. They did speak a lot of German, but their English was fine. I just didn't want them to know I was seeing an Irish Catholic guy. They were very strict Lutherans. Now I'm 20 years into the marriage, and so screwed. Story 12. I told my friends I was colorblind to only the color orange. For some reason they all believed me and would point out orange things to me and laugh at me while my girlfriend and I would be laughing on the inside. Story 13. An older man at the church I go to misheard my name as Rachel. When I tried to correct him he didn't hear my actual name. He later had his wife approach me and ask my name. I just said Rachel thinking it would be fine. They told the entire church my name was Rachel, and it stuck. I'm 8 years into this Rachel lie in a church. Great. Story 14. Used to get my nails done when I lived in China with a friend. We told elaborate lies about her rich husband and my useless boyfriend to the ladies who did our nails as a way to practice vocabulary in Mandarin. I was leaving in like a few months so it was easy, but she had to find pictures of babies and weddings and dresses to use. I just had to remember that my was a doctor and probably cheating on me and she had to choose baby names. Story 15. I had to use my mom's van for a semester in my second year of university. One of my classmates saw this and started poking fun at me. He asked what, are you a single mother now? So I decided to go with it and said nah, my wife passed away and am a single father with twin daughters. He got pretty apologetic and I thought that was that. That is until he started asking me about them every class period. I panicked and kept the lie going, even printing out a stock photo of twin girls to put in my wallet. To this day I still get messages from him asking how the twins are doing. They just celebrated their 7th birthday and love soccer in school. Story 16. When I was dating my husband, his mom wanted us to stay the night. I really didn't want to. Told her I needed to go home due to not feeling well and thinking I had a fever. She offers me Tylenol and I said I couldn't have it because I was allergic. Not sure why I said it. Anyways, my husband overheard it and I later didn't want to tell him I had lied to his mom. We're married now. I recently had to go to the ER due to breaking a bone and was in so much pain I couldn't talk. He told the nurse I was allergic to Tylenol. He then went to my surgery and doctor's appointments with me after that, and I had to continue to say I am allergic to Tylenol. My Tylenol allergy is now all over my medical records. Story 17. Told this story before, and it kinda blew up. I moved to a new city when I was in 6th grade and on the same day I started 2 other boys started and they both knew how to skateboard, so I lied and said I did too. Then for months I lied about being able to skateboard to them and other kids at the school, and I never came clean because I didn't want anyone to call me a poser, so I bought skater boy clothes and a skateboard and learned how to skateboard because I lied about knowing how to skateboard. Still skating since then, I'm 28 now. Story 18. Not me, but a girl I became friends with on a study abroad trip to Japan got asked by her host family where she was from. They misused English and it came out something like, "Where did you leave from?" Instead, being from the middle of New Jersey somewhere, she answered Newark, which was where she had departed from. Of course, these nice people from rural Japan, having never heard of Newark, heard New York. They were so excited that they had gotten a host kid from New York City that they promptly told all their friends all the time over the course of the month we were there. She never had the heart to correct them. So for that month she was a proud New Yorker. Story 19. In high school I told a girl I was from West Philadelphia, born and raised, but I had to move to my current state because of a fight. She was actually from West Philadelphia and would talk to me about how good it was to meet someone from there. I avoided talking to her as much as I could, which wasn't too hard as I had horrible social skills as is. Story 20. I told someone I was mixed Dutch x Spanish and now I'm so deep into it that I even got the town and all. It's pretty bad and people go all like, "Yeah, you can see it, your hair and body shape etc." I wish I could get out of it, but 12-year-old me this up LMAO. Going strong for 7 years now. Story 21. My first job out of college was in local government where I worked pretty closely with a bunch of elected officials. Being 22 I was pretty intimidated at the time and really wanted them to like me. Somehow one of them got the idea that my name was Chris and, it is not Chris. That guy called me Chris for 6 months before he lost re-election. Story 22. Not mine, but my grandparents both have birthdays only a few days apart, June 3rd and June 6th, with my grandma's birthday coming first. When they were in their first few months of dating, my grandpa told her they were going to celebrate on June 3rd for the both of us. This being their first time really discussing birthdays, my grandma took this to mean that they were both born on the same day. She played it up, "Oh, we're soulmates, look at us, born on the same day of the same year," that kind of thing. My grandpa didn't realize his mistake until she told him happy birthday on June 3rd, but she was so happy about it he couldn't bring himself to correct her and was just like, "Yeah, cool, we're born on the same day." This went on for years, with him actively hiding his birthday mail from her and pretending that his folks were calling him on June 3rd rather than June 6th. She didn't find out until over a decade later, when they were married, and she was mortified that for the last 12 years she had been celebrating his birthday on the wrong day. Not really a lie per se, but I can't believe he let it run for that long. LMAO. Story 23. In second grade a friend whispered my name during quiet time and I jokingly told the teacher that a ghost is talking to me. Later that day I was sent to the special counselor's room asking about me talking to ghosts. Jokingly I continued lying about how I downloaded a ghost radar app from those text the number to get this on my dad's flip phone, and how they were always close and I just casually talked to them. I went with the lie for a few days cause how deep I was until one night my parents came home and just started screaming at me, "What the are you telling your school? You see and talk to dead people, what then?" My brother and sister were just cracking up while my parents told me how I could be taken to a mental hospital if I don't stop lying, and it was funny until they kept mentioning I'd be taken away. We laugh about it a lot, but God, that was my finest work of art. Story 24. Oh dear Lord, here we go. Started my job about a year ago and we get a 30-minute break which I wanted to split into 2 breaks of 15 minutes or 3 breaks of 10 minutes so I can smoke. My manager said this was fine. Later on a coworker asks me why I split my breaks as it's not long enough to eat properly. Me oh, I don't eat during the day. Coworker thought this was an interesting fact so told everyone. Same coworker asked me if I wanted a cuppa and I said yes but asked for honey in it instead of sugar as it's healthier for you and I was on a diet at the time. He asks if I'm some kind of health freak and if I drink herbal teas etc. Me didn't hear him right, yes. Later that week my manager orders pizza as a treat. I ask for cheese and tomato as I don't like meaty pizza. My coworker asks me if I'm vegetarian. Me, I just really don't like meat I meant on pizza, but he didn't take it that way and thought I didn't eat any meat, so I'm a super awkward person and didn't want to correct the same coworker. 1 year down the line, I am sneaking out eating my ham sandwiches on my 15-minute lunch break and my coworkers only ever make me tea with honey. How do I end this lie, or has it gone too far? Please help. Story 25. I just got out of it this past year, but when I was 7 I touched the Stanley Cup. I realized years later I was telling everyone I kissed it, but I didn't, I just touched it. When or why the lie started, but I'm glad I'm not doing it anymore. Story 26. A little bit of backstory on this one. When I was originally starting to hunt as a kid with my grandpa and his cousin, they always told me that once I bag my first buck, I have to take a bite out of the heart, initiation, they called it. So part of me was terrified that I might die, but the other part realized how ballsy it would have been if I really did it. So naturally I started telling my friends what would happen if I got my first buck. That day eventually came when I was 12 years old. I was so excited that I finally bagged my first buck that I totally forgot about what my grandpa and cousin have been telling me for years now. I just couldn't wait for them to get to the site where I got it. We start field dressing the buck. My cousin is showing me how to do it all and I'm trying my best to keep up with him, and my grandpa speaks up. He shines his camera and says, "So, are you ready to eat?" My stomach dropped. I was immediately panicking. I gotta do it, it's initiation. So between my gagging and near meltdown, my grandpa and cousin start laughing their asses off, like cry laughing. I asked them what was so funny, and they told me they've been bullshitting me for the past couple of years. It's a lie they tell kids in the family just to get them worked up over bagging their first buck. I was so confused you have no idea, but at the moment I didn't really care. I just bagged my first buck, so I took a photo with a heart which made it look like I was about to take a bite, left the gut pile for the coyotes, and went back to camp to start skinning the buck. You know what the first thing I told my friends was when I got back? Yeah. Stupid lie, means literally nothing. If anything it makes me look like a moron, but hey, Eve been lying about this since like the 8th grade, so might as well keep it up. Edit, this is my first big comment. Thank you guys for thinking what I have to say is interesting. Story 27. When I was in a frat a few years back, I tried coke for the first time. It honestly didn't do anything, but I was extremely drunk and at the time I often acted erratically for attention. Instead of just playing off that the coke didn't work, I kept twitching around when talking, as if I were actually coked out how I imagined being coked out looked like. As a result, my roommates freaked out and thought I was overdosing. They had our fraternity president come downstairs to see if I needed any intervention. I remember playing it off and twitching forcefully but spouting stuff such as I feel like Superman, which was nonsense. It was hilarious to blacked out me, but the next day my roommates thought they saved my life and that I almost died before their very eyes. One of them was my best friend and he almost started crying about how scary it was. I just went forward with it and played it off as though I almost overdosed on cocaine and I lived to tell the tale. My 2 roommates still are convinced I was a lost cause and I never had the heart to tell them I was really just being a belligerent drunk idiot. This story has kind of followed me ever since. I quit drinking for a while after that. Tried coke a few more times though, still didn't get the appeal. Story 28. One of my colleagues, as a way to mess with her in-laws, decided to tell them their son, her husband, was obsessed with Elvis and would love Elvis-related presents for Christmas, birthday, etc. He has no interest in Elvis at all, but through politeness did not question his parents when they suddenly started giving him Elvis albums, movies, t-shirts, mugs, etc. Well, it's 20 years later, their house is full of Elvis memorabilia. His wife still thinks it's hilarious, and he's too far into the prank to correct them. Story 29. Told this girl I work with that I was the bassist for the Goo Goo Dolls. Storytime, we were talking about this and that, and she ended saying something about how she was runway material, and I told her that she could be a part-time model, maybe. I forgot what she said next, but I replied with, my rock and roll days may be over, but I'm still way out of your league. She said, what, were you in some crappy garage band? And I told her that back then we all were crappy garage bands. Then I started to tell her that we were kind of big, went on Letterman a few times, played a show in Toronto. She keeps asking questions, and I keep making stuff up. She has me hum a few songs. And a week later she asked me if I was in the Goo Goo Dolls because a song I hummed kind of sounded like Name, and I mentioned that Twister movie that had Long Way Down in it. I never told her the truth, but she doesn't ask about it much anymore. Edit, corrected spelling and words from posting from a phone. Story 30. I damaged my brain with alcohol and blunt force trauma. Through the host of other things that I had to relearn, I lost an entire color. We eventually determined that color to be blue. I've been living with and around it rather successfully, but everyone I know knows I can't see the color blue or its derivatives. This always brings up a rather hostile conversation with new people because for whatever reason, the majority of the general public all have their understanding of what colorblindness is, and I, a female who does not see blue, do not fit it, so I felt I was constantly almost attacked about how credible my colorblindness is by new people. One day I started a new job and realized none of the people there knew me and no one was going to assume I'm colorblind, so I started to pretend I can generally guess when something is blue. I used to be able to see it or notice a strange coloring or absence and deftly dance around it from there. I only intended to be at this job temporarily and wanted to feel normal again. Well, turns out this job was a great fit and they made a full-time position for me, and now I'm here, Monday through Friday 9 to 5, living my full-time lie. I have no idea how to tell the truth without reverting back to the original annoying discussion and eventually having to sigh loudly and explain, because I was an alcoholic, okay, so we march on. Story 31. This is a long one, but since it backfired on me, I think it may be of interest. So, I live alone, I'm divorced, because my ex-wife has been known to take mail out of my mailbox. I got myself a P.O. box at the post office. Now, 10 years later, all my mail still goes to the P.O. box. An added benefit is that every time I move, I just happen to move no more than 15 minutes from that post office, meaning I never have to change mailing addresses. The DMV here is just a bunch of idiots. 10 years ago, I go to get my new driver's license, they ask my address, and I give them the P.O. box address. No, they say, we need your street address, but I don't want any mail coming to my home, I want it all to go to the P.O. box. What I end up with is a driver's license that looks like this womp 1971 23 Main Street P.O. Box 456 Anytown, New York 55555. Any normal human looking at that would be confused, but 3 officials at the DMV assure me, that's how it should be printed: name, street address, P.O. box, city, state, zip. But in my case, the street address is not in the same zip code as the P.O. box, so the zip code is correct for the P.O. box, but there is no such address 123 Main at that zip code. Every time I've had to get something done at the DMV, they assure me, it's okay. And lo and behold, the stuff they mail me does come to my P.O. box, so that's good. But the insanity of the fact that they require a street address, but it's not checked for validity since there is number 123 Main Street, at zip 55555, that just infuriates me. I need the street address, but it's not real, so in silent protest, the last time I moved, I didn't bother updating the DMV. The new street address would have been incorrect because of the zip code, and the mail still comes to the P.O. box, so why bother telling the DMV my new address? And so for the last 4 years, my driver's license, my car registrations, my car titles, all have the old street address, Well, last week I went to buy a new car. And I had to finance it with car payments. I sign all kinds of paperwork at the dealership. Yes, that is my correct address. Knowing that it's dead wrong, I take the car home. 2 days later the dealership calls me. The bank has a problem with the loan. They want me to fax over a copy of a utility bill to prove where you live. Oh, I thought. They're on to me. Mind you, I wasn't neglecting to update my address in order to commit fraud. It was only out of silent protest because of the ridiculousness. But the bank didn't give about that. I knew that there was no way out of this. I quickly went on the DMV site and changed the address for my license, registrations, titles. Then I printed my cable bill, electric bill, and homeowner's policy, all with the correct street address. And I went back to the dealership to talk to the finance people. I explained that I forgot to change my address with the DMV, and I never got around to it. Why did you sign all that paperwork saying you live at the wrong address? Well, sir, when the sale was finalized, and I realized that I forgot to update my address, I didn't want to have to go through it all over again, so I didn't speak up. That was a mistake, and I'm very sorry. It took them 3 more days, but they finally called and said they had straightened everything out with the bank, and I could of course keep the car. But those 3 days I was in terror. I signed paperwork saying I hereby declare under penalty blah blah blah. I'm sure if they wanted to, the dealership could put me in deep trouble with some governmental agency. I wouldn't have gone to jail, but lying is lying, fraud is fraud, and I'm sure I could have been in some deep with credit cards, my landlord, my credit report, who knows. Story 32. I tell my students in elementary school that I am from the UK and have an English accent, and that I just do the American accent to blend in with everyone else. I am born and raised in the US, never even been overseas. Story 33. When I was in middle school I was staying the night at a friend's house. They offered to let me use their toothpaste. It was a mint one, and I hated it because it kind of burned to me. I didn't want to tell them that I still used the kids' fruit-flavored toothpaste, so I lied and said I was allergic to mint. Then the next day I went to chew some mint gum and my friend was like, I thought you were allergic. My 12-year-old self pretend to have my tongue swell up and faked a lisp and stuff. Years later I'm in college now and all my friends still believe I'm allergic to mint. They stopped me from buying mint gum, eating mint chocolate. I now use mint toothpaste and enjoy it more than the children's one, but whenever they're over I have a bottle of the fruity one just in case. I don't know why I didn't just tell anyone the truth. I feel like I'm in too deep now. LMAO. Story 34. I started college at 25 and I went to this beginning course, so it had nothing but 18-year-olds in it. Plus me, the assistant professor was a grad student younger than me, so he was dad to everyone in his eyes, called me champ, and he asked everyone's name the first day of class. Elizabeth, you go by Liz. Okay, cool, Liz. Anyone else have names they would like me to call them instead of what's written here? Let me know, I got you. So it gets to me and he calls my name. I say, my name is an already ridiculous name, but everyone calls me Dragon. He says, I respect that, an already ridiculous name. I will call you Dragon like your peers. Ha ha ha, okay, cool. That was years ago and this dude still calls me Dragon. Whenever someone says Dragon, WHYD, he call you Dragon, I just say, because that's my name. The classic of classics, I lied about losing my virginity. I was 20, had very low self-esteem, started university, and in one party we were playing Never Have I Ever, and of course when the question came I lied. I even had a made-up story which was partly true, but we just didn't have. My new girlfriends compared experiences that night and I told them the fake story. I hope they have forgot it in case I forget to stick to my lie. That would be embarrassing. Being a virgin is nothing to be ashamed of, but lying about it is just ridiculous, and I was like a living cliché from those teen movies. Story 35. When I was 10 or 11, I was living with my dad for a little while, and told him I could see auras, like colored energy around people that corresponded to whether they were happy or healthy or unhealthy, etc. Around that time he liked to take me to the racetrack to watch horse races. He liked to bet causally. I liked the horses. He was a little bit at a loss as to what to do with this young girl who had mostly grown up with her mom. While we were there I told him I could see the auras of the horses and picked one I thought would win because its aura was so strong. Actually I just thought it was the prettiest. Turns out it was a total long shot and won the race. After that he would take me to the racetrack every weekend to pick horses, and I had to continue to pretend to see their auras. He lost a lot of money that summer. Story 36. Let me tell you why I can't go back to my local grocery store. I had been getting complaints about my beard. Too scratchy, I was told. This left me with 2 choices. 1. Shave my beard. Not an option for me, because I don't have a strong chin when clean shaven. I look like a young turtle. 2. Find a way to soften my beard. After discovering that beard oils were absurdly expensive, $60 for a soft beard. Fuck outta here. I ended up finding a piece of research that was legit life-changing. Baby shampoo. The alkaline of the solution, when applied to the beard several days a week, softens it immensely. If you were next to me, I'd invite you to feel my beard. Shit's like cat's fur. The first time I went to purchase baby shampoo, I was so lost. There I am, 26 years old, standing in the baby aisle. I looked like Jeremy Renner at the end of the Hurt Locker, staring at the cereal, confused, overwhelmed, and on a root level terrified. That's when a woman in her 30s approached. She had an infant tucked into her arms and a full shopping cart. She smiled. Do you need some help? Yeah, I snapped out of my stupor. I'm just trying to get baby shampoo. Oh, it's right over there. She pointed to the collection, resting about 10 feet away at ground level. I thanked her as I reached down. When I heard so how old now with the baby shampoo, I met her gaze. I'm sorry, she tried again, how old is your baby? So, here was my mindset at the time having a nephew and knowing the toll it's taken on my sister-in-law. I knew full well I was probably the first contact this woman had that wasn't her kid or significant other in about a week. She likely wanted to connect with another parent, taking pity on someone who seemed overwhelmed, she could relate, and probably wanted the camaraderie. While yes, I could have told the truth and said, oh, I don't have a kid, I just wanted to soften my beard so women didn't have any reservations about me giving them head, and crush that camaraderie. I didn't do that. I said, he'll be 6 months old on Tuesday. That's great, she squealed. What's his name? Sean. What a great name. Named after his uncle. Great guy. Obviously I don't have an uncle named Sean, but then without realizing it, she went in for the kill. Do you have a picture? Listen, I deal with a lot of weird. I live in LA. This isn't my first rodeo in dealing with a weird social interaction in the wild. So, I smiled of course as I unlocked my phone. I looked up contrite. Oh God, how rude. I didn't even ask what your little one's name is. She showed my concern. No, it's okay, this is Claire. She's only a few months old. She leaned in to speak directly to Claire. But she's getting some hair too, so pretty soon she'll need some of that baby shampoo. At that point, I stopped paying attention because I was furiously Googling white baby on my phone. I should note I am totally cool with any ethnicity of baby. But when you're going in on a lie this deep, you want to create as few lines of inquiry as possible, because if she saw a child of mixed race and asked where my wife was from, all I'd be able to muster off the top of my head is, Columbus, you racist, and then I'd make a woman feel terrible over a baby and wife that don't even exist. After snapshotting the photo I found so she couldn't tell I was in my web browser, I presented the photo. Here he is, she cooed, he's so beautiful, and then she held onto the phone for a couple beats. Wow, this is a really good picture, right? That's because I pulled it off a photography website. So got it professionally done. Thought my wife was crazy when she brought it up the first time cause of how expensive it was. But then I saw him, after getting my phone back. I told her I had to get back home, Sean's waiting, and I bolted. I haven't been back to that Ralph since. I'm too afraid he'll run into her, have to do mental math for how old my fake son is, and then drum up another picture. I now drive 10 minutes out of my way to a different grocer.